There's a version of discipline we were taught to admire. It's rigid, it's relentless, it doesn't negotiate, it pushes through pain, it overrides emotion, it doesn't stop until the job is done. And most of us, well, we learned to respect that version. We learned that if we were hard on ourselves, we were serious. If we were exhausted, well, we were committed. If we were pushing through when we didn't want to, we were disciplined. But there's a question I didn't ask for a very long time. And it's, at what point does discipline stop building you and actually start harming you? When does commitment become punishment? When does strength become self-violence? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Not abandoning discipline, not becoming passive, but separating discipline from cruelty. Because those two are not the same thing. And most of us were never taught the difference. Discipline used to mean something simple. It meant showing up. It meant staying with something when it wasn't convenient. It meant choosing what mattered over what was immediately comfortable. That's it. It was about devotion. It wasn't about domination. But somewhere along the way, discipline got distorted. Quietly and gradually, until it stopped being a tool for building and started being used as a weapon against the self. We turned discipline into control. We control your emotions. You control your fatigue. You control your doubts. You control your body. You do it regardless of how you feel. You do it regardless of what it costs. And if you can't, well, you're weak. And that shift matters, guys. Because discipline rooted in devotion, it sustains. Discipline rooted in domination, well, it erodes. Our culture doesn't reward sustainability. It rewards intensity. It rewards a visible grind. It applauds people who sacrifice everything for progress. We celebrate the people who miss birthdays for business, who work through being sick, who sleep 4 hours a night and call it drive. And we internalize that. We begin to believe if I'm tired, I must be doing it right. If I'm overwhelmed, I must be serious. And if it hurts, well, it must be working. But pain is not proof of growth. Pain is proof of strain. Effort is necessary. Chronic self-punishment is not. The problem is that cruel discipline produces short-term results. You can outwork your limits for a while. You can override your body. You can push beyond what's sustainable. And because it works temporarily, you assume the method is correct. But intensity is not sustainable. Intensity spikes. Sustainability, it compounds. And the life you're building, it doesn't care how intense you were. It cares whether you can continue or not. Cruel discipline almost always is driven by fear. Fear of being average, fear of being behind, fear of losing what you've built, fear that if you let up for even just a second, everything will collapse. So you tighten your grip. You wake up already bracing. You end the day feeling guilty. You rest, but you don't really relax. Because somewhere deep down you believe if I'm not hard on myself, I will fall apart. But ask yourself something honestly. Who taught you that? Who decided that your default state required force? That voice that says, push harder. Is it clarity? Or is it fear? Fear can create motion, but fear cannot create peace. And if your discipline is fueled by fear, you will eventually resent the life it builds. For years, I thought being hard on myself was the reason I survived difficult seasons. I thought internal pressure was strength. I thought that pushing until I was empty meant that I cared. But when I hit burnout, when things collapsed in ways that I could not outwork, I saw something clearly. I wasn't strong. I was brittle. And brittle things break. I trained myself to override the limits, to ignore fatigue, to treat rest like something earned through suffering. I stopped only when collapse forced me to. I called that maturity. It wasn't. It was misdirected loyalty to a model that required self-abandonment. When I shifted to sustainable discipline, something subtle changed. I stopped before exhaustion instead of after it. I left energy on the table. And at first, that felt wrong. Felt like I was cheating, like I wasn't giving enough. But over time, I noticed something undeniable. I became consistent, not more intense, more reliable. I showed up again and again and again. And that rhythm built more than force ever did. Let's define this clearly. Real discipline adapts. Cruel discipline dominates. Real discipline listens to the feedback. Cruel discipline ignores it. Real discipline says things like, how do I sustain this? While cruel discipline says things like, well, why aren't you any tougher? Real discipline respects limits, while cruel discipline treats limits as the enemy. But limits are information. Fatigue is information. Resistance is information. When you override that information long enough, your body and mind force you to listen. And that's burnout. Burnout isn't weakness. It's accumulated, ignored feedback. And if your system only works when you ignore feedback, that system is flawed, not you. Sustainable discipline is quieter. It doesn't look impressive. It doesn't generate dramatic stories. That looks like stopping before resentment, resting before you collapse, saying no before you're overwhelmed, choosing consistency over intensity. It looks like protecting your energy instead of proving your strength. It looks like leaving a margin. It looks like finishing the day with something left. That doesn't make you soft. It makes you sustainable. Push, pause, return. Push, pause, return. That rhythm compounds. Intensity spikes. Consistency builds. We were taught that strength equals endurance. But endurance without alignment leads to resentment. Real strength is staying power. It's being able to continue. If your life consistently requires recovery, something in the design is off. No ecosystem survives by burning itself down every few months. No river carves a canyon by fighting itself. Nature flows. It adjusts. It redirects. That's intelligence. Humans are the only ones that insist on doing things the hard way and then call it virtue. Strength isn't punishing yourself. Strength is choosing a rhythm you can maintain. If discipline only works when you're hard on yourself, it won't work forever. You can't build a life that lasts by being at war with yourself. You can build it with consistency, with awareness, with limits you respect instead of conquer. Discipline does not require cruelty. Consistency does not require self-rejection. Progress does not require pain as proof. If you're constantly exhausted, ask yourself, am I committed? Or am I punishing myself? That question shifts everything. And honestly, that's what this entire project has been about. Unlearning the idea that suffering equals seriousness, choosing something more sustainable. And if this resonates, if this feels familiar, I wrote this book more deeply in my book. I wrote about this more deeply in my book. Life does not need to hurt. Success without self-punishment. It's published now. It's available on Amazon. It's not a productivity book. It's not motivation. It's a reflection on what happens when we stop confusing pain with purpose. If you want to sit with these ideas more slowly, it's there. No pressure. Just an extension of this conversation. Wherever you are in this shift, questioning quietly, or already rebuilding differently, you're not behind. You're noticing. And that's where real change starts. I'll see you in the next episode.